inkproducts.com has now released its new Executive Series 3 for the Epson XP 410 and 310 printers. I'll show you how to install it. When you get the CIS, it's going to come with all the necessary parts. We've even included the safety catch, which, by the way, goes on the back of our ink tank, and then it connects to the printer so it can't be knocked over. Our new ink tank has a larger isobaric chamber. It protects the ink from dust and light. Something we've changed, we now add our double loop hose bracket. Very unique, and what it's going to do, it's going to take the place of backflow dampers. We've also added these sensing blocks. They protect against Epson's firmware detecting an empty cartridge or just detecting an aftermarket cartridge. Okay, now we're going to go into setup. I want to get over to setup here. Push the arrow. Oh, made a mistake. Hold on, go back. Okay, I want to move over to setup. There it is. Click OK. It's going to show ink level. Say OK. I'm going to go where it says replace cartridges. OK. Now you can lift up the lid. Cartridges are going to come over. Now I want to take the cartridges out. Now if you have Epson cartridges or any cartridges in a printer and you don't have a good nozzle check, do not install the continuous ink system until you do. You must have a good nozzle check. You try to put the system in, you may not get a good nozzle and you'll blame it on the system, but it's the print head. You probably ran the cartridge low or out of ink. Okay, now once I do that, I'm going to unplug the printer either from the back of the printer or from the wall. Okay, now I unplugged the printer. The reason why I do that is so I can move it back and forth to do hose travel. First thing we're going to do is I want to check to make sure all the plugs are in, but I'm going to rock the bottles. That's going to take all the ink out of the isobaric chamber. Very important to do that. Take your time. Okay, once I do that, now I can go and install the cartridges. Place the cartridges down in. And I want to point this out. If you don't get the cartridges in to click in, you'll get cannot recognize. When I get them down in there, see these little tabs in the back? I push down, and I push those tabs, and then I lock them. Once I get it in, hear the click, click, click. Now this one's a little hard. Take your time here. Cyan is always a little bit harder. There it goes. Okay, remember, if they're not in, you're going to get cannot recognize. Now, next thing we're going to put on is the T-bracket. It's going to go right here on this back shelf. You're going to measure 2 inches over and then peel and stick it. So if you want, get yourself a tape measure and just mark it with a pencil, but you want to go over at least from the edge here. You want to go over about 2 inches. Then you're going to peel and stick that T-bracket down. Okay, now I installed the T-bracket about 2 inches over. I'm going to push the cartridge assembly all the way over, and then I'm going to put the hose through the hose bracket. And then I'm going to place another bracket right here. So I'm going to have the T-bracket and a hose bracket. Okay, now I got the hose in the other bracket. Now I'm going to move them all the way over to the left, the cartridge assembly. I got a little bit too much bow here, so I'll take a little of that out. Now let's go back over. Now, that's what you want. Want the hose just taut enough that it doesn't have a big loop in it. You can adjust this. Sometimes I said 2 inches, make it 1.5 inches. That'll give you a little bit more if you need it. But now that's hose travel. Okay, now I locked it down, so it's locked into the safety catch. Okay, now I've got the loop here, a loop at the bottom, and I'm going to put one more hose bracket right here. Then the last thing I'm going to do before I turn the printer on is we're going to open up the little air plugs in the back. You have to do that, otherwise you won't get it to print. Now you close those up, then open up the big ones to fill it. That's when you'd use a syringe with the long tips we supply. Okay, now closing that protects it from the light and the dust. Okay, now I've got the other hose bracket. Now you have to make sure you have the loop here. Don't pull tight on this. Have a little loop coming up. Now because these print heads are not very strong, they don't draw the ink like the older Epsons. So we could not use backflow dampers on some of these models. On some of the Epson models, we've discontinued them. We found them not to work efficiently. So a lot of people still sell them with the old style backflow dampers and even this style. And if they're used on the XP series, they'll cause problems. That's why we pulled our continuous ink systems for a couple months till we could come up with a better way. By doing the double loop, it doesn't restrict the ink flow, but yet it stops any ink, or helps stop any ink, from going all the way back. Now we can close the lid and plug the printer back in. Okay, now I plugged it back in, I'll turn it on. Now, if you did it correctly, you won't get an error code. I'm going to open up the lid just so you can see it move back and forth. If you cannot recognize the cartridges, then what you have to do is take them out and reseat them again, make sure they all clip in. Now, I'm watching my hose travel right now. Now on top of the cartridges is a reset button. When one cartridge shows that it's empty, it'll say cannot recognize. Bring it over to the cartridge change position, squeeze the button, then all the ink levels will go back up. The COC chip works awesome because it lets all the colors go back up. Some of the old ARC chips, you had to do one color at a time. Now, this is what I've been waiting for. It says, cannot recognize the cartridges. Okay, that's because I had the printer shut off when I put them in. So I'm going to say, okay. Cartridges are going to move over. That's called the cartridge change position. So basically what I'm going to do is unclip them, pull it up slightly, push it back down. Now that's because I had the printer off. And then what we're going to do is lock the tabs. Push down and to the back. There. Now let's go over. Press start. It's going to check the cartridges again. When we did it correctly, it'll say that you've installed non-genuine Epson cartridges. That's what we want to say. Checking it. Say, you have not installed genuine Epson cartridges. It's another little thing we have to go through. So I'll do OK. 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 OK again. Obviously, you're going to say yes. Okay. Now, I've just installed the Executive Series 3 Continuous Ink System. It's all done. Now, I want to point out, if you installed it and you didn't have a good nozzle check, don't expect to get a good nozzle check. Do 3 cleanings, let it sit overnight, it'll fix itself. But if you do more than 3 cleanings, or you keep trying to clean, it's only going to make the print quality worse. Okay, now it's finished its cleaning of the print head. Now I'm going to print out a nozzle pattern. Press print. Now, even Epson on their cartridge show you can have a lot of missing nozzles. That's a good one, that's a bad one. So if you're going to put the system in and you got bad ones, that's not going to help. You've got to make sure it has a good nozzle to put it in. Otherwise you have to do more maintenance before you can utilize the continuous ink system. It says finish. I'll go to finish. And then we'll go take a look at what it looks like when it came out. Okay, now I just did the cleaning and did a nozzle check, and it's looking pretty good. Now if you don't get a good nozzle check, let it sit overnight and it'll fix itself.